Okay, now the recording light is on.
Okay.
So that's good. All right. So, um, I'm just gonna state our names for the benefit of the recording.
Okay.
So, good afternoon. This is Tamar Carroll, and I'm at RIT today, May 20th, 2023. And as part of the Lambda network at Kodak Reunion, we're conducting brief oral history interviews with Lambda members. And I am here with,
Darla Blasey?
thank you, Darla. Can you tell me, what was your job at Kodak when you first became involved with Lambda?
When I first became involved in Lambda, I was an engineer working in a group. We designed coating equipment for film and paper. And actually, I also, around that same time, had a one-year assignment in research. So that's what I was doing when I joined Lambda.
Great. And how did you get involved with Lambda?
I was really fortunate in the year 2000 to participate in what was called advocate training. And Charlie Brown, who was the president of the organization that I was in, I think it was Worldwide Coding, I don't know, it was WCP, I don't know, I can't remember, but I was in this organization, and Charlie Brown decided to improve the culture by providing this advocate training for employees. So they spent millions of dollars on this training. They sent people through the training in groups of 50. And the training was 17 full days.
Wow.
So it was a huge investment, and they had, trainers coming in from out of state to provide the training. I think in all, they put about 9 groups of 50 through that 17-day training. I was in the third group, and I was 40 years old at the time, and I had never come out to anyone at Kodak. So in the training, they really relied on people in the group to share their identities with the other 50 people that you were going through the training with. And I never in a million years thought I was going to come out to this group of people. But the facilitators did such a fantastic job of building community in that group of people that one day, I don't know, it was probably maybe the 6th or 7th day of the training, the facilitators came in, we did these were all day training sessions that would be from like 8 in the morning until 6 or 7 at night. So this one day they came in and, we did some, around the room kind of exercises. And then they said, okay, we want white women to go to this room, and we want white men to go to that room, and black women here, and black men there, and gays and lesbians over here in this room. And I found myself with my feet weighing 500 pounds apiece, walking down to that room for gays and lesbians. And it was me and one other person in that room. And so a facilitator came in, and he looked at us, and he told us what the ground rules were. Each group was supposed to make a presentation. He said, but your group is different. And he said, we're just going to let you get up there and tell your stories and do whatever you want to do. And he said, and you also you can decide what order you want to go in. Because he said, we're going to have some groups make their presentation today and some groups tomorrow. And I said, we need to go first, or I will never come back, and you better take my car key, or because I was I was terrified. So then what happened was the groups all had an hour and a half to work on their presentations, and then they all reconvened in the room. Well, they forgot that this other person and I were down in the room for gays and lesbians. So they came to get us, and the whole group saw us walking back in. So they let us go first, and I stood there crying my eyes out in front of 50 people, telling them, you know, my whole story, which I had never told anyone. You know, my parents kicked me out when I was 18, and I joined the Air Force, and I got kicked out of the Air Force. A year later, it was before Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Yeah.
So what happened was, overall, the advocate training was such a wonderful experience. And when I was done talking, I got a standing ovation, you know, from the room, and they're all yelling, "We love you, and we've got your back, and you know, we're here for you." It was so transformational for me that, you know, that's when I joined Lambda, because I realized what a gift it is to be able to be yourself. It's the best gift in the world to be able to be yourself. And then to hear somebody like Ron DeSantis writing a book called Courage to Be Free.
Yeah.
He has no idea the courage it takes people to be truly free and live their lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I joined Lambda, and Lambda, you know, was also a great experience. Oh, I'm sorry. So you might have some questions.
Go ahead, please.
Lambda was really cool because I really feel that Kodak was such a wonderful place culturally to work, especially after the advocate training, and there were just hundreds of people around Kodak Park that had the advocate training and just really started to care about people on a personal level. It was amazing. So then I joined Lambda, and I found that all of the networks worked together so well. And I would go to a network event where there was like an African American network and a women's network, the LGBTQ network, there was a Native American network, and they all were all so nice to each other. And I feel like the LGBTQ network is probably the one where people are kind of like, oh, you know, do I want to be seen with them? But everybody was wonderful. And then there was, I participated in an educational event. So once a year, we would have an educational event. And we had this event, we hired a professional director, her name was Adele Fico, and she wrote these skits for us. So she collected, you know, real life stories from LGBTQ people at Kodak, and then she wrote these skits. And then at the educational event, we acted out skits. So I think I was only in one skit, and I was kind of bummed out because I had to play the part of a straight woman. And I'm like, I don't want to be this straight woman. It's like I'm finally like open and, you know,
right.
accepting who I am, and I really don't want to play a straight woman, but I did. And it was so funny because Adele is a straight woman, and we practiced every weekend for like 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
We would rehearse our skits, and we had a dress rehearsal, and we went downstairs, and there's a very small theater in the basement of Building 28 at Kodak Park. So we went down there, and she's talking to us about, you know, the dress rehearsal. So we're all down there, just a bunch of gay men and lesbians, and she says to us, "Okay, girls, you know, for dress rehearsal tomorrow, bring your makeup." And the room went like dead silent. Dead silent. And we were just like all sat there, and then we burst into it's like all spontaneous. We just burst into hysterics. And she looked around at us, and she's like, "I get it." You know, it's like because we don't wear makeup, you know? I mean, I'm probably, at that time, I was probably one of the girliest girls in the group, and, you know, I don't touch makeup, I hate it. I don't touch a purse, you know, nothing. So she's like, "All right, I'll bring makeup, you know, tomorrow for everyone." So we go to the dress rehearsal, and she was told us to put makeup on, and we didn't even know how to do it. So the guys were putting makeup on, and it was like one of the most fun times, because here we are, a bunch of lesbians, don't know how to put makeup on. The guys apparently know how to put makeup on. They're telling us how to hold our lips, and, you know, it was so much fun. And it was just, for me and other people, Kodak did so much. to help us accept ourselves and to help us find a little corner of the world that accepted us. It was life-changing for many of us. I will forever be grateful to Kodak for those opportunities. After the division that I worked in was sold to ITT, and they didn't have an LGBTQ network, so I was the co-leader of starting an LGBTQ network for ITT. And it was, my Lambda experience and connections that really helped me do that. So I think I filled that role for a couple of years, the co-leader of the LGBTQ network at ITT. And, that was very fulfilling as well. And I was the co-leader of, or co-chair, I guess was the term, of an educational event at the Gay Alliance of the Genesee Valley, which was wonderful experiences. And we did a lot of the things that I learned at Kodak. We had the Can We Talk sessions, and I developed safe space training for ITT, and had opportunities with senior management to sit in a room and listen to you while you talk about what it's like to not be able to be your full self at work, and the isolation that you have with your coworkers because of that. So that's pretty neat.
That's so powerful, Darla. Thank you so much for sharing this.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else you want us to know about Lambda?
I felt really emotional today because, when I look at the Emily Jones of the world and Evelyn Bailey, Evelyn was fantastic, and Catherine Rivers, and those people that, really started the network, 30 years ago or whatever, those are really the people that I think should be highlighted, because what they did was phenomenal. They got the ball rolling for everyone else. So I think it's, they deserve a lot of credit, and I really appreciate Kodak's willingness to take that on and to earn the score of 100 on the HRC. They earned it. They really deserved it. So, and for Charlie Brown was the president of the organization that I was in when they did the advocate training, and for the company to spend millions of dollars on that and to give you 17 days. It wasn't all at once. It would be like, it was split up over like 4 or 5 months. So you would have, like in the first month, maybe you would go for 3 full days. And then a month later, you would go for maybe 4 full days. But it was amazing. And so many people that I know that took that training, it changed their lives.
Wow.
I saw people where their confidence just grew, and they actually left Kodak because they're like, oh my God, I'm so confident now, and I'm going to go back to school and learn something new. And it's probably not what Kodak wanted, was for people to leave, but it was amazing.
Do you remember what the name of the training was?
It was just called advocate training.
Advocate training.
Yeah. There was a person, kind of the main, there were 4 or 5 facilitators, and like the lead facilitator, his name was Dennis DeRoss, D-A-R-O-S. I have his email address. I believe that he's in Maine now. Okay. And Dennis had a gay son, and then there was another facilitator in the group. She was a lesbian, and they were both white, and there was a black facilitator, a man, and they talked about their own experiences in a way that made it then easier for the rest of the people in the class, because they really wanted it to be the 50 of us. Yeah. They wanted us to share our stories about work. And another thing that was really neat is that at the very beginning of the training, one of the very first days, they said, here we are, 50 new people that for the most part haven't met each other, because Kodak was huge. Right. So you didn't necessarily know the people in your class. And they said, if you have a lot of diversity in your life, go to that corner. And if you have a fair amount of diversity, go to this corner. If you have a little diversity in your life, go to that corner. And if you have no diversity in your life, go to that corner. Well, I went to that corner with the people that have a lot of diversity in their lives, and that was a pretty good sized group. And we were over there talking and laughing and mingling and having a fantastic time. And then like we started to turn around and look at the other groups, and over here in this corner there's like 4 white men standing there with their arms folded, just looking at everyone like, wow, what have I gotten myself into?
Yeah.
But by the end of the 17 days of training, if you did that exercise at the end, everyone would have been in that corner, because that's what people, it changed not only the minds of people that shared their stories, but it changed people who needed to hear those stories of the other people.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really neat.
Thank you for telling me about it.
You're welcome.
I've always believed in the power of personal stories, and that's a really wonderful example.
It's, I think back on those days fondly quite often, and just, even though, I haven't been at Kodak since 2003, just the impact that it had on my life. And after I ended up, no longer at ITT, and I was then in an aerospace and defense industry instead, it was like going backward 30 years, because it was not the same environment as Kodak. I think people might not want to hear about that or know about it, but I knew other, advocates that ended up where I was, and they're like, wow, we just went backward 30 years. Which is like really hard to do.
Yeah.
Once you know how things can be.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time out of the reunion to talk with me. I really
You're welcome.
appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm gonna turn this off.
Okay.